ho, hello, and welcome to Page Turner's podcast, a festive series. Christmas is coming, and we're bringing you the big gift of Crimbo content as we discuss a few seasonal reads and everyone's favourite guilty pleasure, cringy Christmas cinema. Join us throughout the month as we count down to the big day together. Welcome to your new favourite book club. Liv, how are you?
Ho ho ho! I'm well.
Hey.
I'm well. I'm well. It's Christmas in November.
It is the 20th of November. I am feeling festive because it is forced upon me.
Yeah, you have gone all in with your virtual background there.
No, just a tree. It took me fucking forever to decorate that.
I've gone very understated, guys. Amy has this amazing virtual background of like she looks like she's in a ski lodge in Aspen somewhere. Lots of presents, lots of like decorations, the fire burning, and I've gone all I could find was a string of fairy lights at the top. So,
We do what we can. We do what we can. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. We had our little week break. But yeah, no, I'm afraid to say I've done nothing. Actually, no, that is a lie. I haven't done anything. I met Veronica Roth.
You did. How was your meeting with Veronica Roth?
Mm. She was
Hmm.
great. Yeah, no, it was really nice. I told her that we did post a girl for the podcast. She said she would listen, but not to her episode. So Veronica, if you are listening, thanks for being class and
How was the meeting? Did you feel a bit starstruck, or
oh,
did you manage to
100%.
say everything you wanted to say?
No, I managed to say nothing. Honestly, I was just like,
Oh, oh, that's lovely.
She was very
Oh,
sweet,
well,
very
if you
nice.
are listening, Veronica, thanks. I like
What
it.
about you? What have you been up to?
I've been working a lot. Yeah, I've been working a lot. So that's really boring, and I'm not going to elaborate on it because nobody wants to hear about it. But yeah, I have been working. So it has been nice to have a little bit of a week, little bit of a downtime. But yeah, we're coming into the more festive part of the year. Things should get a bit quieter at work in that regard. Woohoo! And yeah, nothing that exciting's been going on, to be honest.
What are you currently reading? Are you reading something in amongst our Christmas reads? Are you also reading seasonal reads?
No,
Oh.
no, oh no. I have just finished Tell Me Lies by Carola Lovering. And if you recognize that in title, then yes, it's the original version of Tell Me Lies, which is currently on Disney Plus. It is like a kind of college, I can't even say romance. Let's just say a college teen drama mystery with sometimes a bit of romance in there, but I wouldn't call the relationship between the main characters romantic at all. Um, and I just wanted to read the book, and it's very different, but I actually really liked it. It's good. I haven't read anything like that in a long time. It was just purely contemporary romance, which I don't read very much of at all, but it was quick. I really did like it. And it gave me like a little bit more of that world because I think I watched the entire second series in a day and I watched the first series in a day as well. So yeah, it was maybe just over a day. Maybe it was just over a day, but yeah, me and Rory absolutely devoured it.
Amy texts me explaining to me that she just started Tell Me Lies. And then I think maybe a week later you text me just off the cuff being like, oh, by the way, you have to let me know when you start Tell Me Lies. And I was like, oh, okay, right, cool, okay. So this is okay, this is the newest obsession. Yes, okay, okay.
Yes, yes, yes. This is a hyperfixation. Come on board. Come on.
That's it. I've got
Yeah.
too many hyperfixations in my life. You'll have to it's joined the queue.
Just join the queue, and that's fine because at the moment I haven't thought about it in a while because this is what I do. But I was very into it for a couple of days. If you enjoy Gossip Girl, And if you were at uni or college between the years of maybe like 2007 to 2009, 2010, like if you were at any point in those years, if you were actually at university yourself, then I think it's going to be very nostalgic for people. It's got a banging soundtrack of that time.
Oh,
Fashion very like, you can remember some of the stuff. It's very
no.
Gossip Girly. It's very kind of overly dramatic, cringy, and I'm glad I'm watching it when I'm older because I think I would have probably had different feelings about the the main couple if I
Right.
watched it when I was 19. So thankfully I've got better critical thinking skills now. Yeah. What are you reading currently?
I am about halfway through Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune, which is the sequel to House in the Cerulean Sea. Very wholesome, very found family, very gay. So everything I could ever wish for, really.
You're loving it.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Because I do not envy you this. Are you ready to get into it and tell us one what we've been reading and get our speedy summary underway, Liv?
First off, I will tell you the easy one. Obviously, this is the first week of Christmas content. You can expect this from now until the end of the year. We're going to be reading books, watching films. You know the drill. If you've been with us through spooky season, we're doing exactly the same thing, except this time we're not trying to scare the shit out of me. We're, if anything, trying to cringe the shit out of us. I don't really know. We're reading Christmas books and watching terrible Netflix Christmas films.
Yes. The first of which I'm going to watch tonight, and I am already super excited for it.
Yes, we are ready. We are very ready. But this week we have read The Nightmare Before Kissmas by Sara Raasch. Sorry if
Uh-huh.
it's Sarah, but it looks like Sarah. It very much pitches itself as what does it pitch itself as? Nightmare Before Christmas meets Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Yep.
Um, I mean, yeah, that I was really waiting for a cozy sort of a little low stakes Christmas romance. Fuck me.
It's not that.
Let's get it out of the way and then we can talk about this book.
Right. Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Three, two, one, go.
The seasons and holidays that we know are hidden kingdoms of magic within the human world, and they bring joy to cement that magic all year round. Nicholas, aka Cole, son and heir of Santa, is drowning his sorrows in a bar after granting all the wishes and asks of the people of a small country and essentially destabilizing their economy. His younger brother Chris and BFF Iris, the Easter princess, and sister of his now ex, arrive and console him before he slips away from them drunk into the back of the bar. He spills his heart out to a mysterious dark stranger who he'll never see again, and they have a make-out sesh before they're interrupted and the stranger disappears. A year and a half later, and after his rebuke, he is waiting to go home from college for Christmas, where his father announces that after his senior year, or at this Christmas, he'll do a fourth year, final year, and Cole will marry Iris and cement Easter and Christmas as united holidays. Cole is blindsided, angry, grief-stricken, but Iris just wants to help Easter despite him not being her choice either. Suddenly, Halloween envoys show up, and Big Santa Man suggests their son and heir come try to win Iris's hand before the wedding at Christmas. They arrive later, and boom! It's the sexy alley makeout man, Hex. After some squabbling and plenty of angst, our two suitors grow closer and begin to form a secret romance. In and amongst this, Cole finds out that Hex is actually a hostage, and the game for Iris's hand is rigged. To top it all off, his father, Santa, is also given joy that they can barely afford by the smaller holidays surrounding Christmas so they don't die out and can ride the joy of Christmas. Cole is appalled by this and the commercialism of Christmas and sets out to invite the smaller holidays to the ball to discuss a coup where they can all benefit from each other. How Hex tells him that Halloween and the autumn holidays work. Santa finds this out and goes mental, demanding Hex leave or he'll tell everyone Halloween tried to make an alliance with them years ago, threatening their position, but when Cole goes to tell Hex he loves him and he wants to fight this, Hex chooses his duty and leaves. Cole is ordered to cancel the invites to the smaller holidays, but he doesn't, and with the help of the lovely staff, they manage to pull off the semi-coup as Cole realizes Santa is bluffing and simply leaves them to it. Hex returns at the ball and they profess their love, dancing together openly and enjoying Christmas together with a bit of a clear future ahead.
Hooray! That wasn't bad. It was beautifully written, by the way. 2 minutes, 25 seconds. I did laugh a little bit because you were at 1 minute and we had only just returned, what is it called, Polar City or whatever it is that they call it. So the North Pole, essentially. So I knew how much more there was to go, and I was thinking, whoa. But no, you did it masterfully. Well done.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, guys, this was not your regular Christmas, or not. This was not your regular contemporary romance.
No, so I'll start with my first question for you then, just off the back of that, because you've led me in nicely. What would you say it is? If you were gonna market this book, um, what would you call it?
Oh man, I mean, I really like the pitch that it's Nightmare Before Christmas meets Red, White, and Royal Blue. I think that's a really solid sort of foundation. Um, Especially with the political sort of side that you get in Red, White, and Royal Blue. Like, that's. I think this is a holiday romance drama, like a maybe like a fantasy political thriller.
I was going to say I would definitely put political in there somewhere because there is quite a large emphasis on it, more than I thought there was ever going to be.
Yeah, I mean, guys, like obviously we try and do the speedy summary now to give you guys an overview so we can go and talk the main points without having to drone on and on and on about what happens next. But I still missed out at least 20% of the undergoings on of what's happening with each holiday and how they benefit each other, how Santa's effectively a political warlord. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, when I'm saying these things, I fucking love this book.
You were really all in. So I remember you messaged me quite soon after finishing it, I think. Or even maybe you hadn't even finished it by that point and you said you loved it. So yeah, you were all in on it, right?
I think, yeah, I think I was just completely surprised that this wasn't going to be, or this wasn't what, I think it appears to be on the outside, which is very much a contemporary seasonal romance with a little bit of fantasy mixed in there. What would you say it is, genre wise?
Yeah, I think a kind of political drama with a sprinkling of romance, probably. I don't think there's quite enough of a magic system for me to fully call it fantasy. And I know there's other worlds and other kingdoms, but it felt a little bit like if there wasn't a fantastical element, if there wasn't the seasonal kingdoms, and it was just maybe like unknown small kingdoms like Genovia,
Oh,
you know, then it would kind of still be roughly the same story, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think it really hung on the necessity to have Halloween, Christmas, Easter. You could have subbed that out and made it more entrenched in the real world.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, you say that, and all I was thinking was, this is a mafia romance.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Um, like you said, so you could have had it with little kingdoms, you could have it with mafias, you could have it with warring families. I mean, it was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. It took me,
Yeah.
and not that not for lack of reading. I think so. I think perhaps it was potentially even longer, and then the world building had to be cut down somewhat because I know that this is the beginning of a series.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm excited to see where that goes actually. Do you think the pacing was well done? I don't mean it like I'm not saying we need to be so negative, but do you think that it could have been shorter, or do you think it would have benefited from just being longer and fully fleshing out the world?
I feel like I'm a little biased because I'm 100% on board with this book, and um, but I think I really liked that we got a lot of build up before the climax. I thought that sometimes that sort of thing can be rushed. You get an awful lot of them actually building a relationship together, our two main characters, and you get a lot more fleshing out of the supporting characters as well. I think it was a great length. I would have read it if it was longer, but I definitely am glad that it was as long as it was. If it had been shorter, I think I would have felt it was lacking.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah.
What about you, Ems? What did you think in terms of the length? Because I know obviously we harp on about this all the time. I'm character, you're setting. You'd already said that you don't think it's enough of a sort of a world build or like lore building to have a sort of a fantasy arch genre thrust upon it. So did you feel like it could have been longer?
No, because it's part of a bigger series. So I actually think it was quite nice. Like I quite enjoyed it. I felt it was long, but I think they spent a lot of time using extra time in the book to develop the characters more, and I actually really did appreciate that. So although there was parts of that world for me missing, I'm quite confident I'm going to get that in the future books. So I'm not worried about it. And I think it will be really nice to see those come out as well and get a little bit more understanding of the world as well and have it fleshed out. So yeah, it didn't bother me. In terms of setting, I enjoyed it. I think I'm so used to the North Pole being portrayed in film, TV, other books, and it's always really whimsical and magical, and everyone's really festive and jolly. And I didn't get that. So that was a little bit jarring, I think, when I first started to read it. But when I became a bit more familiar with how the story was going to play out and that it was very different from other representations of Christmas and Santa and the North Pole, once you all those preconceived ideas are kind of removed, then I enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good.
Yeah.
I was saying to Amy that we should do a new feature where we look at reviews.
Yeah.
And we look at maybe like a couple of 1 stars, a couple of 5 stars, and we sort of maybe talk off the back of that. Um, so yeah, some of the 1 stars here are brutal. Um,
Yeah, I've got one in front of me right now that's certainly that. Yeah.
take it away. Tell us, and let's rip this person to shreds.
So a very well written review, I must say. It says, you know what I expected, brain rot, and somehow it was still worse. The aesthetics of the book, very charming. The premise, absolutely adorable. The execution, and this is a common theme, like I'll forgive a lot in cheesy rom-coms, but this was bad. So I think there was a running theme when I was looking through the 1 star reviews in that people loved the concept of the story, really were all in on the idea, but felt that it was executed poorly.
Right, yeah. The consensus I have here is that people are angry that it's been marketed wrong.
I got a lot of that too. Yeah, I got a lot of that too.
What does one say? This is a political fantasy with a minor romance subplot. On paper, it was everything I like, but in practice, it's surprisingly brutal. Hex is more of a side character than a main character. We don't even know his name or who he is until page 70. 1/5 of the book goes by before they officially met, and that first fifth is all intense political content. They don't interact as themselves until after page 100.
Do you know though, I do understand why you might not go into this book expecting that. So I think because people perhaps think we're going to get a cheesy, wholesome, like candy floss holiday romance, and then one of the characters doesn't turn up, like the love interest doesn't actually turn up until quite late on.
Yeah.
I can see why people might have been frustrated by that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. We're not looking at these 1 star reviews. I mean, I joked before about hunting them down or whatever I said, but like, we're not chewing them out. We're just curious as to what people disliked about this book so we can maybe have a discussion about it. I think the problem is like maybe because you and I aren't really contemporary romance readers, this was a nice surprise for us that it
Mhm.
was more political. What I really enjoyed, I think, and I think the reason it made sense to actually bring Hex in, well, everyone knows that Hex is the guy in the alley from the very beginning of that book. Like, there should be no surprise that he's obviously going to turn up.
No.
The reason we don't get Hex till 100 pages in is so you can focus on Cole. This book is about Cole. Like, we'll probably get a corresponding book potentially next October where Cole and Hex go to visit Halloween or something. And maybe,
Thought so, and I hope so. I do hope so. Yeah, no, I agree. I liked that the author fleshed Cole out. I think there could have been a very stereotypical mold for Cole
Mm.
and didn't really get that. Some of it was a bit cheesy. I mean, the fact that he's called Cole because he's like on the naughty list, if you like, because he's not doing what everybody thinks he should be doing. Yeah, I mean, it is a bit cheese fest, but in a good way.
I wouldn't have minded if that was the only reason he was called Cole. They somehow try to make it seem as if Nicholas,
Exactly.
like, I
Oh,
hate
just
that.
admit it. It's fine. We don't mind.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Because
So,
I thought, oh, ha, right, yeah, Cole for Christmas, Cole in your stocking if you've not been good. He's
mhm.
called Cole. Maybe it's like a little tongue-in-cheek joke between him and his friends. And then I realized, like, oh no, 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 we're trying to make it work through the spelling and pronunciation of Nicholas.
Yeah. Um,
Seems like a reach, but okay.
but but that's the thing. I think those are the things that people wouldn't have a problem with because they're contemporary romance readers and that level of cringe is almost expected. And
Yeah.
I wondered whether perhaps there wasn't a level of cringe enough to consider it the type of stuff that people love and read and things. Um,
Yeah.
I just find it really strange that people seem to have a problem with reading something new.
Well, yeah, that was another kind of criticism that I've picked up here that I don't have a problem with as such, but I think it would definitely generate some good conversation because I thought this too. Not in a I agree with this, but I did think, oh, that's a subversion I didn't expect. Um, so this person says, I just didn't like the Halloween prince all that much. I love Halloween, and I feel there was a huge missed opportunity here for a trickster or prankster type character that leans into the trick or treat tones of Halloween. I thought that's exactly what Hex was going to be like, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised when he wasn't like that.
I completely agree with you. I think I was expecting a sort of a low-key type mischief god vibes. But then I think the more I read it, the more I realized that each one of them has pride in their season holiday. I'm trying not to say holiday too much, it's very American. And we're not in America. I was gonna say we're in England. We are not in England. We're in Scotland. Anyway, um, and so like each of them, they're not caricatures of themselves. And then there were elements of that with the stereotypical sort of like Cole always being positive, that sort of thing, but that was broken down as to why he's like that, that sort of thing. And I don't think it was necessarily very ho 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 type thing. But no, I really I loved that we didn't get a bad boy.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. And I think, I don't know, I think I'm just moving away from that male main character in general. Like I'm st becoming a little bit bored of reading about the same like the same character just copy and pasted. Like, and they're in fantasy, they're in contemporary. Like, it just seems to be that we want a morally grey male main character, bad boy. And it was refreshing because I thought, here we go. This is exactly what we're going to get. He's going to be snarky, he's going to be arrogant. And we didn't get that. He was really gentle and really kind. And I loved the fact that he felt strongly, and you were saying he had like a belief and pride in his season, his holiday. But he loved the fact that people found joy in Halloween through
Yeah.
when things quite dark. So dark topics like death, and it's finding the good in every day, isn't it? The good in all things. So I actually really liked
Yeah.
how that on his head a little bit. But I can understand why some people might have been disappointed because that's not what they signed up for.
Yeah. But then I think that's no fault of the book itself. That's the fault of the publishing and the marketing companies. And whilst I would say Nightmare Before Christmas crossed with Red, White, and Royal Blue, it is exactly it. But clearly, the people that have read that pitch haven't appreciated the deeper, God, the deeper meanings of the Nightmare Before Christmas and Red, White, and Royal Blue. Ugh, but what I love is when you were saying, oh, I'm not really into that anymore or whatever, that sort of thing. There's a part of me that was like, we have officially, you and I, stopped looking for book boyfriends and are looking for our husbands in the book.
That's it. Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. I know, but it's how many times can you read it? How many times can you read about a shadow daddy that growls everything that he says? And it becomes a bit of an ick after a while. It really does. So I really like the fact that neither of them were really like that. They felt more real to me.
Yeah. I also have this weird thing where if I'm in the mood for morally grey, I'm in the mood for morally grey. Like you can't try and be like, oh, but actually it was a misunderstanding and he's not as bad as everyone seems. Give me a vengeful warlord who, has no qualms about killing his enemies.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that. Like as long as you can, I'm not gonna say justify the death. I'm not that mad. But if you're gonna paint him as morally grey, make them morally grey.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're totally right. Go for it. If you're going to do it, and don't sort of do it in a half-assed kind of wishy-washy way, and then we become a bit like, well, was that purely just to sell the book because it's so popular now? It's not to be cynical, but I agree. I like the change. Has it perhaps suffered from the marketing? Is that why these people giving it 1 star feel this way? Do they feel like they were expecting something else because they should have expected something else? Or is it just that's what everyone expects now? That there's so much of it now that we just expect more of the same.
yeah, no, I think it's definitely I think it's a bit of the first and it's definitely a lot of the second. Like you are so right in that there's so much of it now. And I mean, even compared to let's say 5 years ago, books are being churned out at an impressive rate. Like, I
Mm.
mean, COVID was definitely, if anything, a help. The people were looking to books more, but the rate at which those books are being churned out, and I think we've spoken about this many times, so we're probably just saying the same things. It's getting to be that things aren't as it's not that I'm not enjoying reading, but it's the same stuff and you have to be prepared for that. So when I find something like this and I read something, I was like, this is so fun. This is such an interesting concept. I'm on board.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I think you're absolutely right as well in saying that people maybe don't always look for something different now. People are so in their own comfort zone with what they read and what they enjoy. And we've talked about this to death too, but the idea of there is just so much out there. So if you are not instantly picking up a book and recognizing something in the first couple of chapters that you are used to, that you enjoy, that you are looking for, it's so easy just to DNF it, right? Because how many more options do you have? Everyone's got a TBR that you is never ending and will never end. So I get it, but it's a shame that people don't give books more of a chance, like
Yeah,
going
absolutely.
in.
And I mean, on the flip side, we can argue both sides, right? Like people have precious amounts of spare time. If they want to read the same book again and again and again because it brings them comfort, fucking have at. Like, but don't come for a book if it
Mhm.
wasn't what you were expecting.
Yeah,
I
because
I
you've imposed them.
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk a bit about the marketing. Obviously Nightmare Before Christmas is on its very level surface, it's a fun sort of like, oh, Halloween tries to take over Christmas. At its very core, it is a man having an existential crisis about his entire identity.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to shit on people that don't look for the deeper meaning because we watch media, we consume media that doesn't always have to be a deeper meaning. It's like my problems with Hereditary, right? I enjoyed it when we talked more about it. I like looking for that deeper meaning and be like, yeah, but why does this happen? It's probably just a fault in my character. But it's not as if there isn't the same sort of things in this book with Nightmare Before Christmas of like identity, self, sort of self journey, that sort of searching, that sort of like wanting, where do they belong? So I don't know. I don't know what people wanted from it other than some of the same old stuff.
Maybe they thought that Halloween, that Hex, that would feature more in it, because as you say, Nightmare Before Christmas, Halloween takes over Christmas, where it isn't really like that in this. Christmas very much has the upper hand in this story.
Yeah.
Christmas is like the kind of the main power in this story. Santa is awful. Yeah, that was interesting to me because I did read some reviews about that, that why is it so dark? Like why it's quite jarring in how dark it is. There's quite a lot of traumatic scenes in there. There's quite a lot of triggering elements. It's very they have a very abusive relationship between Cole and his dad, who is quote unquote Santa. I think it is more like a role than this, though, right? It's not that he is Santa, and it's more that Santa is the role that that you can have, and he is in that role at the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's very have you seen Arthur Christmas?
Yes.
Yeah, it's that they're a family and it's that family mantle. Like it's like the family business type thing. It's not
Yeah.
always the same guy who's been around for thousands of years. It's
Mhm.
very much yeah, like a business, that type of thing. So Cole
Well,
is
I got it from that. Did you? Like I could get it more that way. Like if it had been like he was like a whimsical, magical Santa Claus
Mhm.
who had been around forever, it didn't have that kind of cynicism of like how does that work practically? Like in
Yeah.
After Christmas when you have to try and explain how they do it and they've got the big ship and it's a lot more like realistic, then I would struggle with it. But I didn't really struggle with it. I didn't find it that unrealistic that Santa would be like that. I don't know what that says about me.
No, no, you're right though. I felt the same, and I think I would have felt the same even if you were saying he is this big ethereal figure and he's been around for thousands of years. Because in my view, someone that's been around for thousands of years probably doesn't have to reach very hard to be cynical, to sort of become to hate the very thing he symbolizes, to have to constantly be. So I think maybe I'd have understood it. I sort of went with it anyway, and I was like, oh, cool, this is what we're doing. But I think looking at it deeper, if because because I love to do that. I'd have been happy with either one. I think if he was this ethereal figure of Cole would never be necessary.
What and maybe you don't have one, but was there a scene in the book where you realize, okay, this isn't a holly jolly Christmas. This is darker. There's more going on here.
It was quite early on. I think it was probably after the marriage announcement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sort of the way that he's described as like being held by Santa there for the photos, and sort of like the he doesn't have that fun sparkle in his eye like we know Santa does, but he's got like sort of a cold demeanor with him, except from when the cameras are on him. So that sort of already I was thinking, interesting, interesting. We don't have a holly jolly Santa, like you said. We've got I'm going to use the same word as before, cynical, quite like logic thinking, quite
Mhm.
business shrewd Santa.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until he finds out about the tithe of joy that he gets given from the other holidays so that they can be so like what Yule, Thanksgiving, some other ones. They named a few, and I was like, I don't even know what half these are. Maybe solstice.
Winter festivals, right?
Yeah, yeah. Sort of like given this tide so they can sort of be connected to Christmas and be relevant, whatever. I was like, wow, this goes deeper. This is like House of Cards, but Christmas.
I know. Yeah. And again, I get why some people maybe didn't like that, but I thought it was really interesting.
It was just new. It was just cool. And
Yeah.
you still, I mean, we'll talk about the relationships in a moment, but you still got your sexiness, your angst, you got everything you would normally want with a nice solid dose of plot. But I think that's where you and I are different to people who would potentially have given these one-star reviews. Because you and I always love romance as a subplot.
Totally. And this is that. And I will say that if you're going into this thinking that that is going to be the main plot, it's not
No,
at all.
um,
It's done well, and I think it's developed nicely, like the relationship. And as you say, we can talk about that more in a minute, but it's definitely not going to be front and center.
even then, I don't think I ever missed it. There was never a part of me that was like, "Oh, get me back to the relate." Like it's always sprinkled in there a little bit. Like even if they're not together, he's thinking about him, and so there's always that harken back to the plot that's bigger. But it isn't completely not there the whole time. It kicks off the rest of everything else, right?
And
So
it's the main kind of, I guess it's not maybe the only, but it's one of the main sort of, I suppose, tensions in the story, right? I mean, Cole feels guilty that he has kissed this mystery person, and he already feels like he's messing everything up. So
Yeah.
it's just one more thing to add to the list of all the other things you shouldn't do. So yeah, I did one worry that he might be because we know that he's in a relationship with Lily at the start.
Yeah.
I thought, please don't have this be the plot. I don't want him to be straight and then meet the Prince of Halloween and kiss him in an alley and then start thinking he's not though. He's bi. So I really like that. That was again refreshing.
Completely agree. Yeah, I had this worry because I didn't get that vibe at all that he was bi from, or like that he'd even be any way remotely straight from the sort of the blurb or anything like that. Yeah, if he'd have been, oh, he's the first man to turn me, I'd be like, oh, we've written this so many times,
Like,
so
yeah,
many times. And again, there's nothing wrong with finding out your sexuality at any point in your life. It's just it would be nice to focus on like the idea that it's not all about them being queer for one person.
yeah. It's a different. It's just a different emphasis in the story. It's important to the story. It's important to the character, but it isn't the focal point of the story. And I like that because we don't, as you say, we like romance as a subplot. So I think it worked well.
Yeah. And I think the problem with somebody finding out their sexuality in a novel, um, particularly I will say an adult novel, because I completely understand a YA novel having somebody finding out their sexuality because then that's an important story to be telling to children or people, young adults who are reading those novels. That's absolutely fine. But when you're marketing it as spicy, whatever, and you've got a character who is finding their sexuality whilst investigating these relationships, whatever, you unfortunately have a few subplots that have to be going through. So, racking their brains about their sexuality, is it wrong? Is it shameful? And you normally get that sort of thing, which I just don't believe should exist in queer stories anymore. And secondly, it's always the coming out. Always. And you either, it's one or two ways. And if we've already painted Santa as this, I can't believe I'm saying Santa hates on
I
his son
know.
being gay. Do you know, but Santa didn't give a shit. The whole
Uh,
point is when he finds out about his relationship with Hex, all Santa gives a shit about is the fact that, well, it's not pertinent for Christmas. Like,
yeah, loved it. Yeah,
if
really liked it. Really refreshing. So nice to read.
if Hex was going to toe the line and Cole was going to toe the line, and he was like, oh, I think I might marry Thingy instead. I'm sure he maybe would have come around to it if he could have married Chris, his younger brother, to Iris. Like, he'd still get to make those connections. He didn't give a shit about being gay. Like, which I loved, yeah. So,
Yeah, and I think if the Easter airs were men, then I don't think Santa would care. So it really wasn't part of the story, and I liked that
yeah,
because it just meant we could get on with it.
yeah, he was a megaloman. I can't say that word. Yeah, he was a political warlord, but an ally, and
He's an
that's
ally, so you know, not all bad.
yeah. Should we do some 5-star reviews?
Yes, please do.
A lot of this is delightful, this is funny, which I agree, it was quite funny.
It was funny. Did it sometimes tread the line between funny and cringe? Yes. But can we forgive it for that? Absolutely. Yeah, it was, I liked it. The banter between the three friends was really believable. I loved their little group chats. Yeah, I really enjoyed the humor in it. There were some really funny bits. I really enjoyed the fact that when Hex swore, he manifested or summoned a Halloween decoration.
Yep.
So at one point when he says something like what he wants Cole to do to him, a little ghost decoration just appears. So some of it really did make me laugh. I did enjoy a lot of it.
I really enjoyed that concept of it because that plays into again subverting the character that you would expect Hex to be. And it's the idea that, but what I loved is that they went into detail about it, and it's the fact that it's a curse because it's a curse word. They take curses very seriously in the sense of spells in Halloween, and so there's a punishment or triggers something. I love the bit where he's explaining it to him, and he just goes, "Shit," and it just I just imagined it popping out. This jack o' lantern pops out of thin air into his arms, and he's just like, "See." See, this is what happens. Brilliant. But
So good. Yeah, I really liked it. And it was nice to sprinkle some of that levity in because there are quite a lot of high stakes in this book, way more than I thought there was going to be. So actually those little bits were I was expecting more of that. So I really enjoyed that there were still part elements of that in the story.
yeah, I think I might have found a way to describe this book.
Okay.
Because obviously when we speak about high fantasy, we talk about, fantasy with more stakes, more depth, and this
Mhm.
book has that. So maybe we could use the word high and be like high contemporary romance.
Yeah, fair,
Yeah.
fair.
I have a 5 out of 5 here. Um, I wish I could say I'm sorry for enjoying this so much, but frankly, I'm not. This comes
Mhm.
out on October 8th, and you better open up a new tab and order it now. You will want this book. Interesting. This book has such rich world building, an excellent cast of side characters, and of course, amazing romance leads. I cannot believe how much I fell in love with Cole, Hex, Chris, Iris, and hell, even the personal assistant Ren. They're all so well fleshed out in this, it's phenomenal. This book is a little silly in some of the names of things chosen, but it's on purpose, and that is camp. The best way to describe this whole book is that it's so camp. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and that played a big part in why I enjoyed it so much. For a romance book, this thing is packed full of interesting politics. I would say this leans more towards romantasy than just plain romance.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
There's lots more, but I'm not going to read it. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting observation they've done there. It's purposely camp.
Purposely camp. It leans into it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And yet it isn't like it's not just going to go with the concept of on its own. It does try to be more. It brings more to the table.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I agree. I thought it was, yeah, camp fun. I really want to get back into the world. Like I'm excited for the sequel or the second book of I don't know how many there are plans to write, but I'm really looking forward to it. Like I have a bit of a hole in my heart right now for it. I'm like I really would like to go back and
Ooh.
read a bit more about these characters because I did have good fun reading it.
Yeah, yeah. That is pretty high praise from you.
It is, yeah. Things don't really stick with me much unless I really enjoy them. But no, this did, and I think there's more to be told, and I am looking forward to seeing where it goes next.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Should we discuss relationships and characters?
Yep.
Our main two are delightful son of Santa and our son of Halloween. It's interesting that Halloween doesn't have like a figurehead in this.
Yeah, there's just well, we do get we yeah we do get reference to the king and queen, right? And then they leave. They leave.
I think it's more in a sense that like Santa is Christmas's king, let's say, whereas Halloween has a king, but it's
Hmm.
not. They don't have like a Jack Skellington or
Yeah. I'm glad they don't. I'm actually pleased they didn't do like the Pumpkin King. I just
Ooh, oh,
yeah.
I'd have liked that.
I know you. I know, I know, I know. Yeah, it's a separate, yeah, it's a separate thing. So I quite enjoyed that because there was a lot she could have done. There was a lot she could have borrowed from
Yes.
from other media and didn't. So yeah.
That's really interesting. You're right. There is an awful lot that she could have borrowed, and I know we're supposed to be talking about characters, and we've gone back into world building. Sue us.
Alas.
But I felt like she obviously took the traditions that we all know and etc. from each holiday. Sorry,
Hmm.
sorry, UK. And she, but also I think you could tell that she'd done a lot of research.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
It was quite Americanized
it was,
though.
but I feel like we can't really blame her considering she herself is American. So.
Yeah, just it was like, oh, we're Halloween based, and I was like, oh, what are we going to say here? This is interesting. And it was like New England. Like, oh, okay then.
I
I
mean,
see what you're doing there.
I enjoyed the tie that he spent a lot of his time in Mexico, for like Day of the Dead, that sort of thing. That
Yeah.
was really nice as well because it's definitely like with Christmas, Christmas is so like Christian heavy,
Mhm.
and thankfully there was none of that, which was great.
Interesting how she did that because Easter is obviously mentioned too, and I thought, how on earth are we going to get around a religious subplot explanation. It just kind of got glossed over, and that was fine. Fine by me. Yeah, I didn't really want to read about it, so it made sense.
100% chuffed that there was no religion, and I just absolutely respected that she was just like, we ain't talking about it.
Mm-mm.
Nah.
It's nothing separate, it's a different thing. And yeah, it makes sense. There's lots of religious people that celebrate these things and lots of non-religious people that celebrate these things. So I thought it was fine to just gloss over it. And I'm really glad she did and didn't try and shoehorn in an odd explanation or, try and pay lip service to it. It was just like, nah, I'm not even going to go down that road. So yeah, good.
The boys.
The
Um,
boy.
we've already spoken a little bit about sort of the depth that they get in terms of one subverts the tropes that you would expect from a Halloween prince, and Cole isn't as jolly as you would be expecting from a Christmas prince. Speaking of a Christmas prince, I fucking loved that they all watched all three Christmas princes in the home theater that they have.
Yeah. It's a cheesy book. I'm fine. Yeah. Some of it I just had to vibe along to. Not look too closely at.
But I love that. I mean, we didn't really get an awful lot of like Hex. He had that thing about his duty and sort of doing what he needed to do with off the back of his elder sister's death, um, which mad. I mean, that just comes out of nowhere, and you'd have thought that the death of an heir to a kingdom would be big news.
Yeah, I didn't really understand how it all worked. There was a lot of reference to paparazzi, journalists, newspapers. I mean, she must have spent a lot of time researching this book, just coming up with different names for newspapers with a holiday theme, because there were so many seasonal newspapers.
Yeah.
Um, and yet, so it sounded like they were all quite up on what was going on in the other kingdoms. And then you're totally right. I was a bit surprised why he didn't know that the heir to Halloween had died.
I wonder if actually, now that I think about it, because you meant you triggered something in my brain there, in a good way, where you said about the holiday names for the papers. Maybe the paparazzi, the press, etc., only exist to deliver news of that world to that world.
Ah, yeah, like the winter festivals very much do their own thing. The autumn festivals very much do their own thing.
Yeah. So they have,
Easter.
yeah, so they've, yeah, Easter, yeah, spring. But you've got that, yeah, that seclusion between seasons, I suppose, that we see. So I think it's possible that it wasn't massive news across all the kingdoms, but for it to not be mentioned before seems implausible for me.
Me, me too.
So
Didn't love the plot's point of what happened with his sister's boyfriend. Just a bit like why? Not quite sure why that had to be in there.
it was an interesting one. I think, yeah, so essentially Hex sort of explains when they're explaining about sexual partners and things, Hex is very what's the word? Un um unexperienced. Sorry, he's inexperienced. He's not unexperienced, that's not a word. Um and he sort of explains to Cole sort of some of the only things he gets, and that is he gives his sister's boyfriend, who is dead at this point, after the funeral at the wake, a blowjob. I understand maybe what they're trying to do and saying, oh, grief makes us do things that are, not out of character, but like, extreme things, that, you're trying to figure out about these emotions and you just can't, and that comes out in different ways. Did it have to be the sister's boyfriend though? Could it not have been I went out and got fucked
Mm.
by a random Halloween citizen? Do you know?
I I just didn't get it. Like, I see what you're saying in terms of like it makes us do things that are, if not out of character, then definitely something that we wouldn't normally do. I just didn't really understand why it had to be the sister's boyfriend at the wake. It just felt like it was a bit weird. There wasn't really any other reference to it. It didn't really seem like if he had been quite a damaged character, if he'd been quite like moody and standoffish and quite closed, and then it was revealed that he did this thing and he had a tremendous amount of guilt about that, then I could think, okay, maybe that's why it's there. But I didn't really see what it added, and yeah, I didn't really like that bit, to be honest.
I think it was only really done for us to have Cole be the good guy, have Cole be that sort of guy that was like, yeah, but he took advantage of you, like that sort of thing, which, very much did, not denying that. But I think it was only written to benefit Cole's character for us to be like, oh my God, he's such a good guy. And I don't think it was necessary because I already thought Cole was a good guy. I already,
It's too late too. It was a throwaway line very late on in the story. Yeah, not for me. I think that could have been taken out and the book would not have suffered.
not at all. Like you said, especially considering it never comes up again. Like their relationship is pretty cemented, right? Like, so what are we gonna meet the sister's boyfriend?
Maybe we will. I hope we don't, but maybe we will. Yeah, maybe there will be, more will be revealed in following follow-up books, but I just don't really. Yeah, I was just a bit like, ah, okay.
Actually, it was a paragraph, and we.
Yeah. Because it was it not in quite a nice interaction between the two characters as well? So it kind of took me out of it a little bit.
I think were they in Cole's room and were sort of about to get down or about like talking before they had sex, or was it in the midst? Because I think wasn't he saying, "Is this okay?" And he's oh you meant I don't know, I don't really remember when it was, but I do think I remember it feeling a little jarring.
Mhm. Jarring is correct. That's yeah, that's exactly what I would say. I just kind of over skimmed over that bit. It's like, okay.
Once again, I feel like what I loved the most about it is the angst and the wanting and the longing. um do I feel like it could have been a bit longer? Yes. I feel like the payoff was a bit quick, which led us to yours and mine's least favorite thing. They're banging for at least 40% of the book, and I'm just there like,
Yeah.
cool, yeah, skip.
Did that thing, didn't it, that we've talked about before, where as soon as the first sex act happens, whether that be penetrative sex or not, we just keep getting sex scenes after that. Even at the end, they like disappeared, like magicked away from the ball to bang. And I was like, why do we need another scene? Like, I
Yeah,
feel like we've established they have a good sex life. Like, I don't think we can add more now. It's like 96% finished. We don't need
yeah,
another one.
yeah. It was a bit much. And look, it happens in all forms of like romance, spicy romance type thing. So, obviously it's not a specific
Oh
thing.
no, not at all. It's not a specific criticism to this book. It just happens, and I get it. Like you want the payoff to be worth it. But I think for me, it just became a bit stale, and I was like, oh, we're having sex again. Okay.
Um,
Uh,
what I
yeah.
did like, and I will say I appreciated fully, was that it wasn't just like, oh yeah, we're in the room banging, we're gonna do penetrative sex. It was like you gave blowjob, he gave blowjob. So there was a build up to the big act. But
Yeah.
again, I also don't like the fact that penetrative sex is seen as the main course.
Yeah, well, that was very much I don't know. Like I don't know if I would say it was seen like that in this story. Because Cole seemed quite happy to just do whatever Hex wanted. Not that it's like, oh well, oh, he didn't pressure him. Good guy. Like we're not saying that, but like there wasn't I didn't feel like there was going to be expectation. If they hadn't had penetrative sex, I wouldn't have been all that shocked, to be honest. I would have just been like, yeah, whatever, that's just they're not down for that. Fine. Like it didn't feel like it had to be there. When it was there, I think it was, yeah, whatever. Like, but I agree what you're saying. Like some stories do make it like we're getting to that point. All this other stuff is kind of we can ignore that really. We all know what we're wanting to get to. I didn't feel like that with this story though.
No, no, and I think that's probably a problem I have with general romances is that you're saying like, oh, we're building up to the real sex,
Yeah.
like almost suggesting that like blowjobs or cunnilingus, or I didn't think I was going to say cunnilingus, and then I said it and it came out my mouth and I did. So
Isn't
I
it?
said it. That word's out there now. Um,
Said. Yeah.
it's almost suggesting that those aren't real sex, and which always infuriates me. But whatever. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, but no, I enjoyed. I liked that it wasn't just like wham bam, and then we're gonna have the same repeat sex scene again and again and again. But I do feel like I preferred them before they had sex, in the sense of like their outside interactions.
Yeah. I mean, would I go as far to say as it was insta lust? Yeah, I probably would go as far to say that, to be honest. Insta love?
Uh,
Maybe, maybe not. It did kind of go from 0 to 100 quite quickly, though.
it was quite quick, yeah. And I get it. Once you put a sort of and we're going to be married on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, you already put a timer on,
Mm.
and almost like a ticking time of just like everything has to be ramped up by then. So I can appreciate potentially the pressures that she's put on herself to be like, all right, so they've got to be in love by then.
Yeah, I didn't need an I love you. I didn't need an I love you declaration. I would have been fine without it because, as you say, we did have that time scale there, and I would have quite liked it if they hadn't got to that point of their relationship yet. It
Yeah.
it would have been more realistic to me.
Especially considering we're getting more books, and it's not necessarily, I appreciate we don't know if it's going to be about Colin Hex, but I know the next one is about Chris. There's going to be references to them because there has to be, so there's always that scope to go further.
Mhm. The third act breakup thing always kind of annoys me, to be honest.
It was expected.
Exactly. We knew there was going to be a reveal. We knew there was going to be some angst. And I had a feeling we'd have reference to the Christmas Eve ball quite a lot. So I did think we're going to get some kind of critical scene during the Christmas Eve ball, whether it be some declaration of love or it might be just how Cole then reveals all his plans and everything kind of comes out in the wash, like maybe then. But I knew something was going to happen then. So it wasn't really a shock to me when we had a third act breakup. It was just a bit like, oh,
Which is strange because obviously third act breakups are very much the norm in sort of contemporary romance. So I found it again with the fact that it didn't really stray away from any of those sorts of tropes. So I found it again more confusing that people were like, oh, too much of this, too much of that, where it still considered itself or kept to the timeline that you would normally get from a contemporary romance.
which is why I think it's less fantasy
Mm.
because we associate different tropes with fantasy, right? Rightly or wrongly. And they weren't really in it. Um,
No, I would say that the closest we probably got was there's always like a third act twist or like a climb and like a end of the book twist in fantasy or something like that. So I feel like that's probably as close as we get. I don't really think there was a twist at the end that caused the breakup. I think it was basically Santa finding the letters and replies that he'd sent to the other smaller holidays, and then
maybe Hex knowing that it was all supposed to just like it was rigged from the start, like he wasn't going there to,
oh, I
you
thought
know,
I thought he already knew.
I don't know. I think it was when he said like I know because and he was so passionate about Halloween because of his sister and how passionate about Halloween she had been, and he wanted to kind of protect Halloween in her absence, and he didn't want to let her down. So I thought that was, if not a twist, then at least just some random tension that was added at that point. I do think his sister being mentioned so late was a bit disappointing, to be honest, because it did feel like it was just there to cause. I'm damaged. I can't possibly give up my duties because of my dead sister. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
I mean, at the very least, it gave him an excuse to be in that alley, to go and look at him, to be like, I wanted to.
Like that either. I don't know if I like that he was in the alley to find Cole because he wanted to know what kind of person he was. I would have liked it if it had just been a meet cute, like just they were both there at the same time. Hex was doing his thing, Cole was doing his. because I wanted more of Hex. I wanted him to be more fleshed out, and I didn't like the fact that all of his motivations and all of his character arc was just about Cole.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I think I would have really liked, like you said, the idea that it was a meet cute and Hex obviously knows this would give a sort of a layered version of Hex obviously notices that that's Cole, but Cole has no idea who he is, either because he's drunk or because there's this illusion that Christmas thinks of no one else but themselves. So I think that could have played in quite well. Yeah, I think whilst obviously losing his sister is damaging and gives him that sort of trauma that he hasn't really worked through, I do think as soon as they were back together, it was very much just like sister. What sister?
Yeah.
But
Next. Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
basically.
Yeah, a part of me just felt like Hex wasn't fully formed the way Cole was. But it was very much Cole's story, so it made sense. But there was a little bit of that, like, I don't have any friends. I wasn't like well liked in my school. And like my sister's dead and my parents aren't here. And it's like, okay, so you are just our love interest then. We're not really getting anything else about you.
Yeah, I think despite trying to subvert the trope for what we imagine a Prince of Halloween was, unfortunately, it didn't subvert it all the way, right? Like, he's a loner, he's sad, he's depressed. Like,
It's
it's
emo Halloween. Yeah, 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 yeah. I get it. I get what you're saying. Well, maybe we needed something. Yeah, so I really did picture him like that.
with
I
the,
wasn't mad about it, but I
with the
pictured it.
yeah, with the emo fringe being like, because tonight will be the night. Yeah.
He was. He was. I did like them as a couple. I rooted for them, and I thought their interactions were really wholesome and sweet. And like it was quite hot. There was quite a lot of tension. Like I was clutching my pearls. I was fanning my brow. I was into it.
Um,
He was being force it. I was fine with that.
I'm afraid we're going to have to move on to Chris and Iris
Okay.
based on the second book. So, I mean, we get what is coming out around. I imagine it. I imagine it's coming out around March time because it's basically Chris and the son of Saint Paddy's Day.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
I'm scared because how much of a stereotype might the son of St. Patty's Day be?
Especially if we're going to be looking at American Irish as opposed
Exactly.
to traditional Irish. Um, yeah, I'd like to because I know that Chris leaves Christmas Town or whatever it's called, and goes to Irish Town, St. Paddy's Town. Um, I don't know. And because he's being rebuked, he's done something, and he has to. So we're gearing up to be enemies to lovers, which I'm enjoying. We love a bit of enemies to lovers. I don't really think we got that with Cole and Hex. I
Oh,
think
no, this is not enemy to lovers. No, 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 no.
I would say, I mean, it's not even rivals to lovers because Cole doesn't want to be married to her, and hell, neither does Hex. So I don't know. I'm not sure how I would categorize that romance, but I do feel like book two we are setting up with real hate here. So yeah, so then there's a part of me that's like, all right, so if Iris and Chris were never endgame, then what the fuck was it all about?
No, was it just to make her dislike Iris? Because that's all it did. Just me as you. I was exactly the same as you. I just was like, oh, come on, Iris, stop leading this poor boy on.
Yeah, and I,
She wasn't.
it's tough, right? Because she should be able to be friendly and be herself around men without worrying that she's of the signals that she's giving him.
Of course.
So maybe we're being bad feminists here.
I think I don't think we're being bad feminists. I think the way, and I don't mean that the story's written poorly, I just mean it was difficult because a lot of the time we didn't really find out what else was going on with these characters. So it was hard for us to truly understand their full character. Like, who else does she interact with? Well, we don't know because we don't see any of that.
Yeah.
What else do you want? We don't know. We don't have any understanding of it. So I think this is going to be one of those things that it will be better than the sum of its parts. Like once the other books are released, everyone's going to be fleshed out, and I think it's going to make a lot more sense. It felt a little bit lazy and a bit cheap to put that in there, that there was this storyline where, oh, he's loved her forever, and like, yeah, fine.
I am
It,
doing our miming for wrapping up in a little bow.
you're
Like,
totally
because if that was the case, and if it wasn't such a fucking secret, as soon as Cole doesn't want to marry Iris, Santa, because he's so fucking clever and everything, should have been like, all right, well, Chris can marry her.
exactly what I wrote down. I was like, well, problem solved then. Chris likes her. And does she like Chris? We don't know. So she doesn't seem to care who she likes because she seems quite happy to do this if it just means that things will be good for Easter because of the pressure she feels from her dad and with her mum being dead. So yeah, I just didn't get it. I
Um,
just didn't get it.
I'm not laughing about her dead mum, but it was just like, geez, everyone's dead in this.
One's dead. I did really enjoy Cole's mum's storyline that she just didn't want the pressure of being Mrs. Claus. Like, I really liked that.
Yeah, yeah, but what I didn't like is how that had to make her a bad mother.
Bad mother. Bad mother. Just sends him pictures of herself in a bikini. Does she? Right? Why? She
I
cannot want to be Mrs. Claus and still be a parent. Like, just yeah, a bit pantomime villainy, the mum, wasn't it? Like she wasn't really in it, but she was just everyone disliked her and she just seemed to make really bizarre decisions.
yeah, yeah. Um, I have to mention this because I wrote it down and noted it every time it was said, and it's completely not relevant. I've just seen it in my notes there. I don't know if you picked up on it, and I'll be so chuffed if you did, but the word molested was used way too many times.
But a lot of strange uses of words. Hemorrhage was used a lot.
Jesus. But it was something like unmolested, molested, but not in like a sexual sense, in like a feeling of otherness, not having no sense of inappropriate touching was used with the word molested. And I was just like, this seems like the wrong word to use here.
It's always going to have really stark negative connotations. So when I read it, it was it was jarring. It was like, yeah, there was definitely an example of being unmolested, and I'm like, I feel like there's a better word you could have used there. We don't need to use that. Some of the word choices were interesting though, because I really enjoyed how it was written, to be honest. But I did think some of the vocabulary used was a bit jarring.
Just very quickly getting back to Iris and Chris. Sorry, I've taken us a small tangent there, but if if they'd have gotten together, I'd have been pissed off because I hate shit like that when it's
Yeah.
like, oh, and everyone there's four friends and two of them, like it's just that not everyone in friendship groups has to love each other.
No. And to be fair, to give the author credit, I didn't think they would end up together, but I didn't understand why it was in it.
Yeah, especially since Chris doesn't act on it. I wonder whether the only reason it was in there was to then give Chris that sort of ending he had where he confessed his well, we don't even know. We assume he confesses his feelings. Clearly it doesn't go well for him to then have an excuse to have something to go past his act for the next book, which I don't normally like because that means that somebody's already setting up a sequel before anything
Yeah.
else. That sometimes damages the plot of the first. I don't think it did necessarily, but yeah.
So there's a comment made where it's like it's not great, but it's something to do with, oh, we call ourselves like bye bye bye,
Mm,
the NSYNC song, but bi. And then because Chris is not bi, we say bye bye besties.
right.
So what? What? What?
Yeah, so
Okay.
from what I can gather, the second book is clearly it's going to be MM, right? It's going to be male and male, right?
Patrick's Day. I don't know what's happening there.
They made such an effort to be like, yeah, but Chris is straight. Oh,
Yeah,
see,
that. That's what I mean. Like, why even put that in there? Just leave it. It doesn't matter. We're not looking for that. We don't need to label Chris. It doesn't matter to us. But you've done it, so why have you done it?
Exactly. I think yeah, sometimes it bordered on that element of really good in terms of oh, it doesn't matter that he's gay, etc., or like it's not even part of the storyline or whatever. But then to do that, to be like, oh, Iris is bi and she's this, and Chris is bi and he's, or Chris isn't bi, he's this. Yeah, it was a bit. We don't have to categorize everyone, but apparently we do. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I wonder if it's going to do the very thing we don't like, and it's going to be
Just
his
thinking,
his first.
yeah. And he's going to be really conflicted and feel really guilty and shameful. Let's really hope not, because it didn't do that in the first one, and I was really pleased it didn't.
Yeah. Should we finish off by talking about Santa?
Yeah, let's do it. We can't not talk about Santa, can we? Because Santa.
Let's start about the violence, like the suspected violence, because guys, if you maybe check out the trigger warnings before you read the book.
That's a point.
Are
Are
there?
there trick?
I don't think there are any in the front of the book, but there's definitely a more. There's definitely towards the climax of the novel. There's this moment where Santa, who is apparently already quite a physically imposing man, um, is like he moves towards them at the climax and like he raises his hand back and Cole thinks he's gonna hit Chris and he stands in front of him and it's quite traumatic, actually.
Yeah. No, there's no mention of trigger warnings at the start of the book. However, there could be on the website
Yeah.
or something. I do think sometimes if there are going to be triggering themes, though, maybe just put a link to the website at the start of the book, even.
Yeah. Yeah. I get this as a holiday book and you maybe don't want to bring the tone down, but sometimes if you're gonna if you're gonna write a book like this with that sort of thing, you should, yeah. But and then there's a moment where Santa's been, I don't know, ousted because there's no real like victory. They do the little coup and Santa's just like, oh, and then he says, I was never going to hit your brother. And then he
Yeah,
leaves.
I know, but you have physically you have been very physical up to this point. There's a lot of mention of when he puts his hand on his shoulder that it hurts and he can feel it and it's like crushing his bones and very sinister.
It's like you were saying, you weren't expecting it to be that way because of this figure of Santa, and nobody could ever imagine Richard Attenborough doing any of those things. It was probably quite difficult to get into, but at the same time, it did seem a bit out there.
It was a bit much. And I don't know if it necessarily, I mean, it's an important thing to put in a book, but I don't know if it necessarily was, if it fit in this book, because this book was trying to be lots of things at the same time, maybe.
No, I get that. I think you're right in the fact that you very it is something that is, important to include, especially, but was it right and was it handled well? Like I think it was done and then he says I was never going to hit you by the way. And I think there's no real more discourse around that. Like there's not because if someone says, "Oh, I was never really going to hit you by the way," despite like swinging their arm back like that with a I don't know whatever, it's all well and good saying you were never gonna do that.
Yeah, but all signs point to.
Yeah, you can say that because you didn't do it. Yeah, so I think we're maybe getting a little too real, but I think it was such a it was
You said before, if you're going to include topics like this, then you need to be responsible in how you write them. And I do think there was a lack of resolution for that storyline.
yeah, I think maybe we'll see more, because the next one's about Chris, so we will get his relationship with his dad. So hopefully we'll see some sort of positives in that element, but I'm not really sure.
Final thoughts.
God damn this podcast. Coming in, I was like 5 stars, loved it, amazing. And then I've been like, oh shit, actually, maybe there was some things that I wasn't a big fan of. But I would 100% recommend this to a friend.
Oh, I would recommend it to a friend. I think, yeah, it's not without its faults. It's a little bit cheesy. There are some parts that are maybe not handled as well as they could. There's a bit of insta lust, insta love. There's going to be things here that people, not everyone's going to love. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea,
Mm.
right? But I think there are plenty of people that I would recommend this book to and would enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's fun. It's got a little bit more depth to it than your regular contemporary romance, which is something I look for. Obviously, I know that's not everything, something everyone looks for. I just thought, yeah, I thought it was really enjoyable.
Great. Similar that you've read that you would recommend?
I mean, it's hard not to recommend Red, White, and Royal Blue. If you like this, you will, or vice versa. I think they're much a muchness essentially. If we're looking for wholesome sapphic but with a bit of a plot, you could do The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. That's just come out a few months ago. A lot more low stakes would be Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. What about yourself? Anything?
You want to stick to something festive? There's Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. So if you recognize Sierra Simone's name, spicy, and yes, there's plus size representation in there too. So yeah, it's fun. It's a good one, and it is just Christmas vibes and some romance, but there's a little bit more depth to it, like this one has. So
Yeah. If you are, do you know what? Maybe I don't spunk all my Christmas recommendations in the first
no,
episode.
I'm not. I've got a few more, but I think we have to eke this out because we've got
Yeah.
a couple more things to go. Yeah, so
Speaking of a couple more things to go, join us next week when Amy, would you like to tell the people which we so basically because we don't think we'll be able to get a full episode out about one film, we're gonna do two films that have a sort of similar overarching theme.
I'm starting to think that might have been a mistake though, because we seem to be able to eke anything out to over an hour long. So we are going to try and talk about two Christmas films, which could be hugely ambitious and perhaps result in a 3 hour long episode. We'll have to see. So we're going to be watching Hot Frosty and also The Merry Gentleman.
The Merry Gentleman, beautifully done.
Thank you. So quite different, I think, but ultimately cheesy Christmas rom-coms.
Are they satirical? Are they not? We'll find out and report back.
I almost hope they are. I almost hope they don't take themselves too seriously. I mean, these things never take themselves seriously, but I almost hope they're a bit more clever about it. I'm excited to see.
Yeah, yeah. Email us podcastpageturners@gmail.com. Page Turners Pod on Instagram and TikTok. We're really rubbish on there, but you might see some. You get to see our faces, which is always nice. Oh,
Email us. We say it about 1,000 times an episode. Get involved. We've got grand plans for the new year, so it's just going to keep going, guys. So
we're probably going to have a break after Christmas, a couple of weeks, 2, 3 weeks maybe. Sorry that we will not be helping you warm those January blues with solid book content, but we ourselves will be too depressed to record episodes.
yes, we need to read books and do things that are not going to be part of the podcast world for a bit. So we'll be back after that. But yeah, this is going to be lots of content right now and then less content in the new year for a little while, and then we'll be back.
I was going to say, love you guys, like weird. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Comment in on Spotify if you'd like to.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Be good.